All right. Oh, sorry. Now I can see you, Yvonne. All right. Now, more importantly, I need to see what I'm going to say. All right. Good afternoon. We'll start with International Days today because tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day. It's your day. And in all seriousness, it is a constant reminder that free and independent journalism is an essential public good. In his message, the Secretary General says that when journalists are unable to work, we lose. Tragically, this is becoming more difficult every year. And sadly, he said, we are seeing a sharp rise in the number of journalists killed in conflict areas, particularly in Gaza. And this year's theme is the impact of artificial intelligence on press freedom. The Secretary General added that artificial intelligence can support free expression or can stifle it. The full remarks are online, but before we get to World Press Freedom Day, today is, just as important, World Tuna Day. In case you did not know, tuna is rich in omega-3 and also contains minerals, proteins, and vitamin B12, among other advantages. Unfortunately, though, its popularity has led to overfishing in so many parts of the world. All right, back to regular programming. This morning, the Secretary General took part in a dialogue with peacekeeping troop contributing countries. This was a closed meeting, so we won't be sharing the Secretary General's full remarks with you. But I can tell you that, as you can imagine, he thanked troop contributing countries for their participation and for the work and sacrifice of their soldiers and police officers. Peacekeeping is multilateralism in action, Mr. Guterres said, a direct, collective, and tangible commitment to peace. He added that peacekeeping is also a partnership, and that partnership depends on global political support as well as on ideas, insights, and continued commitment of member states in the face of a range of increasingly complex risks and challenges. And of course, financing for peacekeeping is clearly one of those challenges. The peacekeeping ministerial meeting in Berlin, which takes place in 2 weeks, will be an opportunity to build on this important work. Turning to the situation in Syria, I can tell you that our Secretary General has been monitoring with alarm reports of violence in the suburbs of Damascus in the south of Syria, including reports of civilian casualties and assassination of local administration figures. He condemns all violence against civilians, including acts which could risk inflaming sectarian tensions. In this context, he also condemns Israel's violation of Syria's sovereignty, including the latest airstrikes near the presidential palace in Damascus. It is essential that these attacks stop and that Israel respects Syria's sovereignty, its unity, its territorial integrity, and its independence. The Secretary General unequivocally calls on all concerns to cease all hostilities, exercise maximum restraint, and avoid further escalation. The Secretary General is encouraged by the intra-Syrian efforts to de-escalate the violence and maintain security and stability. He also takes note of the statement by the interim president, Mr. al-Shara, prioritizing dialogue and cooperation within the framework of national unity, and he also appeals to the interim authorities in Damascus to transparently and openly investigate all violations. The Secretary General further underscores that this is imperative to support a credible, orderly, and inclusive political transition in line with the key principles of Security Council Resolution 2254. Moving to Gaza, and our humanitarian colleagues today say that today marks 2 months since Israeli authorities imposed a total blockade on all supplies into Gaza. We can't stress this enough. The longer this blockade continues, the more irreversible harm is being done to countless lives in Gaza. Fuel is also running out, and even existing stocks are often inaccessible. This is because many fuel stations are in areas where Israeli authorities systematically deny our request for access. Just to give you a couple of examples of the humanitarian impact of the lack of fuel, earlier this week, the municipality of Beit Lahia in North Gaza said it could no longer pump water from wells or run sewage and sanitation systems. The Palestinian Civil Defense also reports that if only 8 of its 12 firefighting, rescue, and ambulance vehicles remain operational. Meanwhile, OCHA reports that hostilities continue to imperil civilians. Over the past 2 days, our colleagues on the ground reported airstrikes, tank fire, and heavy shelling in residential areas across all of the Gaza Strip's 5 governorates. Scores have also been killed or injured, including women and children staying in tents with displaced people. In recent days, 3 farmers were reportedly found dead in eastern Khan Yunis following reports of an airstrike in that area. And on Tuesday, farmland in North Gaza were reportedly set on fire. And on Wednesday, a fisher was reportedly killed off the coast of the Gaza Strip. Beyond the loss of life, these incidents further deepens people's dependence on food aid, which, as we've said, is either depleted or fast running out. And an update from the situation up north in Lebanon, where peacekeeping colleagues tell us that the head of the peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon, Lieutenant General Haroldo Lazzaro, today met with mayors and local leaders from Tyre and the Al-Khala sector, and that is in Sector West. He reaffirmed the mission's commitment to supporting local communities to help enhance local capacities for post-conflict recovery, and UNIFIL's ongoing coordination with the Lebanese Armed Forces, it's also Lebanese municipalities and other UN agencies. UNIFIL continues to observe Israeli Defense Forces activities in its area of operation. UN peacekeepers continue to conduct their own operations, including with the Lebanese Armed Forces, with checkpoints, patrols along the Blue Line, and operations to counter rocket launches from Lebanon. And on April 30th, UNIFIL tells us they detected a weapons and ammunitions cache containing rockets, and that ammunitions cache was near Shinin in Sector West. That was promptly reported to the Lebanese Armed Forces, as they are mandated to do. And also the mission tells us that its peacekeepers in its area of operations in southern Lebanon continues to encounter incidents of aggressive behavior and obstruction of movements in its area of operations. Moving to Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that over the past 48 hours, local Ukrainian authorities report that at least 6 civilians were killed and nearly 100 others, including children, were injured as shelling intensified in the regions of Dnipro, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, Sumy, and Zaporizhzhia. Homes, schools, and health infrastructure were either destroyed or damaged. Today in Zaporizhzhia city, an overnight strike injured dozens of civilians and damaged multiple residential buildings, a university, health facilities, and other civilian infrastructure. That's what local aid workers and authorities are telling us. Yesterday in Odessa, the city was also struck, resulting in casualties among local residents and damage to more than a dozen apartment buildings. Our humanitarian partners quickly mobilized to deliver emergency assistance in both Zaporizhzhia and Odessa, including hot meals, psychological first aid, shelter material. With many homes left uninhabitable, efforts to secure temporary accommodations are continuing. And an update from Haiti, where our colleagues, humanitarian colleagues on the ground, are continuing to provide assistance in areas where armed violence continues to hamper access to health care. In the Center Department earlier this week, we and our partners delivered emergency kits, enough to support 30,000 patients for 3 months. These kits, which include surgical instruments and other essential supplies, were dispatched to hospitals in Ash, in the Center Department's capital, also to the commune of Boucan-Carré and other places. These facilities are trying to cope with acute shortages due to the influx of displaced people. These health facilities are also understaffed and overstretched following the closure of a major referral hospital in the department. As we told you last week, the University Hospital of Mirebalais was forced to suspend operations following a wave of increased insecurity in that area. Although we and our partners continue to support hospitals that are still functioning, access constraints reported along main transport routes are complicating efforts to deliver vital assistance. Across Haiti, access to healthcare is shrinking. The situation is particularly acute in Port-au-Prince metropolitan area, where 42% of the healthcare facilities remain closed. That's what the Pan American Health Organization is saying. Severe funding shortfalls are also undermining the response. A third of the way into the year, the 2025 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan for Haiti is less than 7% funding, having just over $61 million in the bank compared to the $908 million that is needed. Our humanitarian colleagues continue to work with UN agencies and our partners to meet the most urgent needs of the people in Haiti, wherever and whenever possible. And quick note from regarding Myanmar, Volker Turk, our High Commissioner for Human Rights, called today on the military in Myanmar to stop all attacks on civilians and civilian objects. He said the unremitting violence inflicted on civilians, despite a ceasefire called by the authorities back in March following the earthquake, underscores the need for the parties to commit to and implement a genuine, permanent, nationwide halt to hostilities and a return to the rule of civilians. Since the earthquake and as of April 29th, the military has reportedly launched at least 243 attacks, including 171 airstrikes, with over 200 civilians being killed. People in Myanmar need food, they need water, they need shelter. They also need peace and they need protection. The High Commissioner said it is time to put people first, to prioritize their human rights and humanitarian needs, and to achieve a peaceful solution to this crisis. Lastly, a humanitarian note from Somalia, where colleagues there tell us that since April 15th, more than 45,000 people have been impacted with flash floods. That's what local authorities in Somalia are telling us. A number of people died, including young children. On April 28th, the Shabelle River burst its banks in the Jawar district, forcing more than 6,000 to flee the makeshift camps on higher ground. In Galmudug State, flash floods in some parts of the Galkayo town affected more than 9,500 people who were displaced, living in 14 makeshift shelters. The flooding is happening at a time where humanitarian organizations, especially national NGOs, have been crippled by funding cuts. In recent months, many groups in Somalia have been forced to pause, scale back, or even end the critical work they're doing on the ground. This year, about one-third of Somalia's population, that's nearly 6 million human beings, need humanitarian assistance. However, out of the $1.4 billion humanitarian appeal, we have just received $148 million up to this very moment, which is about 10%. And I will leave it at that and take your questions, should you have any. Yes, Ahmed, then Amélie, and then Yvonne.
Thank you, Steph, and thank the Secretary General for his kind words about the World Press Freedom Day. And like every year, he comes and maybe he meets with the journalists here at the headquarters, and he expresses his respect, admiration, love, everything. But this is missing action that have been on the table for many years. Appointment of a special representative of the Secretary General for the freedom of the press and the protection of journalists. Record numbers in recent 2 years of journalists have been killed in the line of action. And we still haven't seen any action from the Secretary General's side.
Well, I mean, I think I beg to differ. I think the Secretary General has been extremely vocal on this issue. He's also raised it directly with member states. And I remember just in his visit to Paris not too long ago, he had a long meeting with RSF, Reporters Without Borders, and I think was very clear in saying what he's doing and what he's saying. Amélie.
Sorry. Thanks, Steph. I have a question on two different issues. First, there was the NGO Coalition for Freedom, the flotilla, the Freedom Flotilla, said that one of his boats was attacked, carrying aid for Palestinian people, was attacked with drone attacks and pointed finger on finger on Israel. Sorry, I have trouble to formulate my thoughts
That's okay.
today.
I think I'm still understanding you.
Thank you. So, any comment from the Secretary General or any information on if
No, I
whether
mean,
it
we've
was the
seen
Israel?
these disturbing reports. I think that took place near Malta, and we hope the case is investigated. But we have no more information than what was reported in the press.
Second topic, there was a leaked memo from the UN Haiti task force suggesting quite radical reforms of the UN, including the agencies. So is the Secretary General supporting this different suggestion from the task force? And if I understand correctly, many of those reform would need to go through the General Assembly, since a lot of these are General Assembly resolutions. So do you have already some kind of feedback from the member states?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Secretary General, when he spoke to, I think on March 12th, when he presented the UN 80, was very clear in his aim to push forward ambitious reforms to this organization, to not only to save money, but to make it more efficient and more adapted to the world we live in. There are three streams in that. One is looking what he, as the chief administrative officer of this organization, can do in terms of how we use the resources that are given to us in a way that is more efficient. So he's working on that. There are other streams which include looking at our mandates that are given to us by member states, and where there's duplication, where mandates are no longer useful or effective, and what we can do with member states on that. The third one was also looking at more structural changes to the UN system. The last two especially will need member state approval, right? I mean, it's not Antonio Guterres' organization. He's the chief administrative officer. It's the member states' organization that fund this organization. As part of that work stream, we've asked senior officials and others to submit suggestions and how we can improve this organization. So that's what this leaked memo is. It's just part of the process. And I think, any organization, whether it's, the UN, your media organizations, which are often older than the UN, can all benefit, right? And so I think in any organization, when you ask staff to anonymously send in suggestions, sometimes you get some very creative things that you may not have thought about. But this is part of a process, and the Secretary General, I think in his work on UN 80 done under the leadership of Guy Ryder, will be reporting back to member states over the next few weeks, because we'll need their involvement, we'll need their buy-in, and we'll need their commitment for these ambitious reforms. Sir, Mourad. And then Yvonne, sorry, no, I called on Yvonne first, and then Mourad.
Thank you. Mine is a bit of a follow-up, actually, on Amelie's question. We saw the protests in Geneva yesterday, UN staff coming out in force, really worried about job losses. You don't have to spend very long in this building to know that people here are very worried too. How concerned is the Secretary-General about job losses and the ability of the United Nations to carry out its core functions going forward?
We are very worried, right? And I think you can look at what he's done in dealing with the liquidity crisis that we've spoken about, right? Which is due not to budget cuts, but to the fact that member states are paying later and later, if they pay at all. He has been very focused on that, on ensuring that we can keep doing our work and that our staff can keep their jobs as well. I think he has a duty and a care for staff. He has a duty and a care for the monies that are given to this organization he has to handle, and he's trying to balance all of it.
Okay, most worried he's been during his tenure?
Clearly.
Okay, one other question on press freedoms. Hong Kong has fallen to 140th on the list, according to RSF. It used to be near the top of the list. Does the Secretary-General have any specific comment on Hong Kong's dramatic loss of press freedoms over the past few years?
Look, I think the loss of press freedom and the dramatic loss of press freedom we have seen across the board in many parts of the world, and that is something that is of concern to us.
Okay, on Hong Kong specifically, has he got
I
a
think
comment?
that would cover Hong Kong.
Can I have one other question, please?
Why would you be different than anyone else, Yvonne?
All right, UNRWA, the deadline imposed by the Israeli security forces on the closure of those schools in East Jerusalem is coming up, I think, in the next week or so. What is the situation there? Have they moved off the premises? What is UNRWA doing?
My understanding is that the schools are continuing to operate. Murad, and then
Thank you, Stéphane. On the tensions between India and Pakistan, the SCG offered his mediation and good offices. And the Pakistan ambassador just said that they actually invited the SCG to mediate. Have you received any response from India?
I think we expect the Secretary General to have more conversations with both parties. As in any conflict or any, we're not in a in any situation where there are high tensions between two member states, the Secretary General's good officers are available. But to state the obvious, good officers only work if all the parties involved accept it. And if I have something to share with you on that, I will. Kari, then Iftikhar.
Thanks, Steph. A follow-up on Murad's question. You say that the Secretary General is expected to speak with Indian and Pakistani leaders, but is it before the weekend? Because there's kind of a tight deadline that has been announced in the press. And second question was asked actually by Amélie and Yvonne. Thank you. Third question on Haiti. It's very difficult to have a clear picture of what's the exact presence of the UN right now. You keep mentioning there's less and less funding, like the funding being, the needs being funded only at 7%. So how many people are they and from where? Because are the PAM people still there? I think they had to leave. Do you have?
Yeah, I don't have the figures top of my head, but we continue to have an important presence in Haiti. But I can try to give you a breakdown of people. Iftikhar.
For the Indian leaders?
I will inform you when the calls happen. I will let you know when the calls happen. Okay. Well, Iftikhar, it's nice to see you in person and not on screen. Please.
Thank you so much, Steph. President Trump has unveiled a budget request for 2026 fiscal year, and at this budget request, it poses most contributions to the United Nations. What's your position?
My position?
Secretary General.
Yeah, yes, exactly. No, we've seen the news coverage. We've seen the budget has gone. This is part of an internal process. Each member state has its own different budget process. The U.S. process, as I understand it, it goes from the president to then Congress, who votes on it. So let's see what comes out of this process. Sinan.
Thank you, Steph. I think you received this question before, but I'm not 100% sure. And also, it's very important. I think it's okay if I ask again. According to reports, since the HTS took the government in Syria in December, we have seen a wave of kidnapping women, predominantly Alawite, taken to the Idlib, and which is a traditional HTS stronghold. And evidence is emerging that these women are taken to a life as sex slaves, and the kidnapping mirrored the enslavement of thousands of Yazidi women by ISIS in 2014. So, and also Mr. Gay Pedersen, I think he mentioned last week during the Security Council meeting. So the question is, according to your knowledge, is there any independent committee investigating this case?
These reports are highly concerning, to say the least, right? And we are very concerned at any attempts to increase sectarian tensions in Syria. I will check with our colleagues on the various Syria-based commissions working around the Human Rights Council if they've done work specifically on this issue. Okay, any questions online? Thank you all. I'm not going to ask my own questions. Have a happy Friday and see you Monday, right?